Hi guys, it's 9:41 in the morning West Coast time on the 20th of November 2025. It's Thursday. I have been monitoring and watching the funeral and memorial service for former Vice President Dick Cheney, who was being, the service is over at the Washington Funeral Home. This was hard to deal with. This was hard to deal with watching this. I know because of the loss of my own family, I have a hard time with memorial services. And this one was hard enough. I never valued Dick Cheney's conservative attitudes or warmongering, and I called him a warmonger for a hell of a long while. But I never realized that he had a softer side to him until it's like a couple of weeks after he passes. And then we hear about the softer side of Dick Cheney. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. His politics may have been harsh, and I never liked him back in the 80s and 90s of being a warmonger at that point. I always had this negative connotation about him. And now hearing from his family and the colleagues that he had, I'm like, why didn't we know about this guy earlier on? I didn't keep an open mind. For some people, I got it closed off because I saw what they presented, and I didn't like it. Either it was for defense or maybe a reality check. I don't know, but I didn't like it. So I guess somewhere in there I had a hell of a lot of anger and animosity towards him and his viewpoints because I thought he was wanting war. He was honest and brutal in his viewpoints. However, there's one particular grandpa I wish I had in my lifetime. And that's what makes it harder for me to deal with. I'm seeing now on the corporate media, they're trying to get all the other people trying to talk or being echo chambers. I just didn't want to deal with that. I wanted to hear what was going on, and I didn't want to, but I heard it anyway. I chose. And it still hurts like hell because I still hate funerals and memorial services because I'm reminded too much of how much I miss my family. Throughout my life, I've gone to memorial services and never liked them in the first place because I was always the permanent goodbye and I would never see him again. And if I actually had a twinge of remorse or guilt or even grief coming in, hid from it, and I didn't show the pain to anybody. But I didn't continue with the grieving process. A little bit here, a little bit there, but not much. I had to keep moving. I had to keep working. I had to do things. I didn't know what it was like to be crippled by grief. How powerful and painful this particular feeling of loss is, especially when you have that much invested in that other person, one way or another, either directly or indirectly. And how much of an impact that person makes it worthwhile in your life, that you wish you had more time for them. I do the Diary of a Griever named John Weaver a great deal. These days it's politics, but when something like this happens, I have to switch over to the grieving portion to talk about how I'm feeling, how I'm dealing with this, and maybe some other people are dealing with the same way too. Because it's never easy to talk about grieving to anybody else, not even to groups of people or to an individual. It's personal. It's hard to put into words because the feelings are so powerful that sometimes words are not enough. Sometimes language is not enough. to express that deep. It's worse than any oceanic abyss. Just as bad as getting squished by a gravitational collapsar, otherwise known as black hole. Because for me, it doesn't get any better some days. It gets worse. Sometimes I get the depression worse before I get the grieving. And then still feel depressed afterwards anyway. I mean, it's complicated emotion built into our own soul. That when we have that kind of attachment, and that attachment's gone, how much of the investment did we pour into that relationship with that person? As I said before, directly or indirectly. And you're going to be getting multiple times after that of the pain. And that's what I've been dealing with. I've been dealing with a compound pressure with too many I cared about gone. Didn't matter if two-legged or four-legged. So if they think I've got mental illness, I've got mental illness because I killed myself a long time ago and just never realized I was a zombie. And now I realized how much of a zombie. And it hurts like hell. It hurts a great deal. I taped most of it on a audio cassette just for posterity. I know on streaming they'll have it, either live or they'll tape it. Maybe chunks or the entire thing. I can see fictional stuff and it still kicks my ass today. Back then it didn't. Back then I thought, solidification between me and the feelings. No longer. It's worse than rice paper. Worse than rice paper. Worse than tissue paper. At least tissue paper, when it's bound up in layers, it's solid enough. But this is like you touch it, it melts, and you get overwhelmed and overloaded. That's how I'm feeling right now, is overwhelmed and overloaded. Maybe some people will look at blaming. There is no blaming. There is only my own grieving, my own process, my own pain. And I'm seeing a memorial service for a guy who I didn't like all that much. And maybe I should have turned it off. Maybe I should have just said, screw it, you know? I had to watch. I can't explain it. For me, there is no explanation. There's just dealing with it. I kept telling myself there was always other sides to the stories. Well, this was another side of the story I never came across. I didn't hear about. I didn't bother exploring how much of a family man, of a grandfather, of a person who actually gave a shit about people and about lives. I always thought he was a heartless bastard. I kept telling myself I'm a fool and an idiot, and this practically guarantees it. It solidifies the stamp above my head, or actually on my forehead. Fool and idiot. Maybe I should get a tattoo. A permanent ink tattoo on my forehead. Be reminded of being a fool and idiot. I can go thermonuclear on the politics. I am not denigrating this guy because I'd seen the other side of him. And that's who I mourn today. I mourn a guy who I really didn't like throughout the years. Every time I kept hearing the name Dick Cheney, And it was always bringing up anger and scorn and ridicule. I can't do that anymore. I can't do that anymore. For what was being broadcasted, what was being told about this guy, I can't do that. I have to give this guy the benefit of the doubt, even though he's gone off this earth. I still have to do my portion of it, and mine is to pray for forgiveness, pray for God's mercy on him, and blessings on him and his family. Said before, I may not like the politics or appreciate it. At least I can appreciate the guy as being a human being and a man who actually gave a shit. I can't knock against this guy. I can't. I won't. That being said, guys,